Let's talk more about those Portland Trail Blazers, and joining us here on the show, Trail Blazers Analytics Insider Cory Jez. Cory, welcome to the show, my man.
Orlando, thanks so much for having me. Great to be here. Great to be in Rip City for a nice little three-game trip, three-game homestand.
All right, well, maybe you're bringing a little luck their way as well because they could use it, man. But let's dive right in. First and foremost, like when I think of Analytics Insider, immediately I think about the meme from the movie Hangover where you see all the numbers popping up and everything. So can you just break down a little bit more about what your role is with the team?
Sure. So, I got my start in the NBA in a front office in 2017 with the Utah Jazz, and analytics, numbers, data is a bigger part of the sport. Everybody's seen and heard Moneyball. It's the easiest word to use to describe it all. But what it really means is there's so much more information now than there ever has been. The box score has been around since the 50s. But we have new technology that every team in the NBA is using, their front office, their coaching staff, to help them try to win basketball games. And thanks to Jody and Bert and the broadcast kind of brain trust, Jeff Curtin and Dan Hyatt at the Blazers, they decided to bring an analytics insider onto the broadcast just to help communicate that to the fans, just to help people understand what is our favorite team doing, maybe a little bit behind the scenes, to use that data to try to help us win games. So I'm just kind of taking my learnings from previous roles in the NBA and trying to bring them to Rip City fans.
And he's trying to help your Trailblazers win some games here. So I'm curious if you could just give me an analytics starter kit. Where should we look? When we pull up the box score and we start looking at numbers, what's kind of a clear indicator on how to tell a story within the team?
Yeah, so actually last night's game and playing Dallas again tonight's a great example of that. Dallas is one of the slowest teams in the league. Luka does not like to run in transition, and so you don't get a lot of possessions in those games, even though the Blazers scored 136 points last night. So one of the ways we control for that is instead of talking about things on a per game basis, we talk about them on a per possession or per 100 possession basis. Folks who watch our broadcast will hear me talk about offensive rating and defensive rating and the net of those two metrics. And that does two things. One, it controls for that pace, because if you play Golden State, you're running up and down. If you play Dallas, you're not. So it controls for that and levels those things out. Another thing that does is controls for things like overtime. We've seen Dame have 40 points and not even play the fourth quarter. We've seen Luka have 60, but he did it in double overtime. Well, he had about 25 more minutes to do that. And so we want to even those things out, because Dame should get a lot more credit when he has one of those nights where they play so well he doesn't even play in the fourth quarter. And so offensive rating and defensive rating, points per 100 possessions. You see these things now on NBA.com. Great website that we use a lot called Cleaning the Glass. And so there's a lot of this stuff is moving its way into the public domain. And with the broadcast, we do have access to some specialized metrics through our partners at Second Spectrum, who does the optical tracking data as well. So we'll even bring some more advanced stuff like pick and roll data and things like that into the games as well.
So when you're on air and you're starting to break down these numbers, what has been your goal as you've gone through this and you're on air and you're talking to Brooke and you're breaking down the numbers and stuff like that? What is your goal?
Well, like I mentioned, every team, whether or not folks like it, frankly, every team is using this around the league. Different levels and different levels of investment, but the Blazers certainly have really invested this, their front office, their scouts, and their coaching staff. And so we just wanted to mirror that on the broadcast. And so my goal is to help the fans understand how the team that they love is looking at the game. And so that might be things like last night they decided to double team Luka Doncic in the pick and roll. We will go look tonight at some of the numbers of what happened when they doubled Luka, what kind of shots did it create, and what effects did that have on the game. We can provide some advanced numbers to that in a similar way to have the same resources that Coach Billups and his staff are looking at as well.
Cory, then let's talk about those Trailblazers, because you've worked with the Jazz for a few years before that. You've done this. You've been in the NBA for a few years. I'm curious what you thought about the team when you got here versus where you're at now and what you're seeing in terms of trends.
Well, I think this Blazers team, and really seeing Coach Billups up close for the first time in my career as well, they've got a lot of optionality, a lot of different ways that they can play the game. And we're seeing Damian Lillard play off the ball even more this year as well. Playing my previous time in Utah with players like Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, there was they did one thing, they did it really well, but that was the thing that they did. And I think Coach Billups has had a lot of elasticity with how he plays the game and zone defense, double teaming and things like that. And I think one of the things that stands out to me from an advanced number standpoint recently is that over their last 21 games, so kind of that second quarter of the season, because we're right about that at the halfway mark, they've been a +1 point differential per 100 possessions. So those two numbers we just talked about, they're a +1. That's to the positive. That's good. Over the same stretch, they're 8-13 win-loss record. Well, those things don't really add up. So what does that mean? Well, we know, or at least I know, and now we all know, the research shows us that point differential is more predictive of future success than just win-loss. And the reason for that is because winning games big is a lot better than winning games small. You know, good teams win close games. Great teams don't even play close games because they win by so much, a lot like the Blazers did last night against Luka and the Mavericks. And so that trend where the win-loss record, I expect to catch up to that point differential because they've already been a positive team, 12th ranked team over that second quarter. So you're looking at about top 6 in the West, which really is the goal to stay out of the play-in.
So folks, when you're looking at the box score and you start to head over to the standings and you're trying to figure out how good this team is, point differential, folks, look at that. That's going to tell you how good is your team. I want to flip the switch now because I think that's definitely a positive sign for the Trailblazers. But I want to ask you, what are the trends that are making you feel a little more concerned about the Trailblazers, some things they need to work on?
Well, I just talked about kind of that second quarter of the season, but when we look at the first half of the season as a whole, Portland has a really good ability to get out and run, especially guys like Josh Hart after misses. But Coach Billups has shifted the offense around a little bit this year, a little more passing, getting the ball into Dame's hands later in a possession. That has resulted in a few more turnovers than the team has seen before. Turnovers are a tricky thing because you could just dribble and take a bad shot and never turn it over, but you probably wouldn't win many games that way. So you got to pass the ball, you got to move the rock to try to generate really good-looking open shots. The Blazers have so many good shooters: Dame, Ant, Jeremy Grant, even Yusuf Nurkic taking threes this year. So they're moving the ball around, but they have been about 28th in the league in turnover rate, so turnovers per possession, again, controlling for those different game-to-game speeds. And that is something that if they clean that up, their shooting is so good. That means they'll get more shots because they're not turning the ball over. And so when we talk about turnover rate and we talk about shooting, we talk about those efficiencies on a per shot basis. So less turnovers means more shots when you have one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league.
Lastly, I got to ask you, what player has impressed you the most, even if it is just looking via the numbers?
Boy, that's a really good one. And, you know, the player who I think everybody hoped this would be the case, and even Damian Lillard is on the record saying he thought this guy would be a good fit, is Jeremy Grant. Because Jeremy, if we look, there's an advanced metric called usage, which is basically what percentage of the time are you the person who takes the shot out of the 5 on the floor. Early in Jeremy's career, he was really low usage. He played Denver, Philadelphia, OKC. Last 2 seasons before coming to Portland in a trade in the offseason for a first-round pick to the Pistons, he was at Detroit. He was the veteran. He was the guy with really high usage, and it was tough for him because he's really good as this second-side playmaker, playing off of a star like Dame. Dame played with him at Team USA. He saw that. He felt that at that power forward position. Joe Cronin and his staff went out and got Jeremy this summer in a trade, and now his usage number is right in between those two parts of his career, and we're seeing some of his best three-point shooting because of that, because he's getting really good open looks or really good opportunities to attack the rim.
Cory, thank you so much for rocking with us, joining Sports Sunday. You can catch him on the Portland Trail Blazers broadcast every game. Welcome to Rip City, my man.
Thank you.